The chocolate melted slowly on Ray Caldwell's tongue, a rare luxury worth every extorted credit. He leaned back against the cracked concrete curb outside the miner's dorm, letting the sugar wash away the grit and metal tongue of Vergen's air. 12 hours in the deepest shafts had left his muscles knotted and his lungs raw. But for these 5 minutes, just him, the fading warmth of the 3 suns, and a smuggled bar of imported sweetness, he could almost forget where he was. Almost. Settlement sprawled in rust-colored dust, a haphazard sprawl of corrugated metal shacks, scavenged machinery, and flickering power lines. It was the kind of place people came to disappear, whether from debt collectors, old enemies, or themselves. Ray fit into all 3 categories. He told himself 2 more months of back-breaking work would be enough to buy a ticket back to somewhere civilized. But the number had been 2 months for almost a year now. A prickling on the back of his neck pulled him out of his thoughts. Years of service had taught him to trust that instinct. His hand brushed the butt of his pulse pistol as his gaze swept the street. That's when he saw her. She stood in the shadow of a dead cargo loader, framed by the jagged ribs of its rusted chassis. Electric blue hair caught the low light, the color so vivid it seemed impossible in this dust-stained place. High on her head, 2 furred, fox-like ears twitched with a life of their own, tracking sounds he couldn't hear. Her skin shimmered faintly with an azure hue that seemed to drink in the sunlight. And then there was her tail, a full, plush thing, of the same blue as her hair, curling and swaying in a rhythm that suggested both curiosity and something else. Before he could speak, she dropped low onto all 4s with a predator's grace, eyes locked on him. Her lips curled to show small, sharp teeth, and she made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a growl. G-R-R. Ray blinked. What? She tilted her head, repeating it with more emphasis, her tail flicking. G-R-R. The half-eaten chocolate bar felt suddenly like his only weapon and his only peace offering. Unsure whether this was a threat, a greeting, or the prelude to a bite, he extended it toward her. Here. Peace? The transformation was immediate. Her fierce look softened into a radiant smile. In one smooth motion, she rose to her feet, the shift from hunter to conversationalist, so seamless it made him blink again. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing his as she took the chocolate. "Thank you," she said in flawless standard, her voice carrying an accent he couldn't place. "I'm Mira." "You speak English?" "Of course." She bit off. A small square, her eyes closing briefly in pleasure. Worth it. Worth what?" "The growling," she said simply, as if explaining the obvious. "I was marking you." Ray's brain stalled. "Marking me as what, yours?" She nodded, chewing thoughtfully. "So the other girls know to stay away. I don't even know you." "I've seen you at the refinery," she countered. "You fixed the pressure valves when they blew last week. Saved 3 workers. Brave, strong, attractive by human standards, I think." Heat crept up his neck. "That's flattering. But you can't just—" "You offered me food," she interrupted, holding up the chocolate. "In my culture, that means acceptance." Ray groaned under his breath. "Of course it does." Her tail swished slowly, deliberately. "I'm not asking for your firstborn, human. Just dinner. Tomorrow night." He should say no. He had plans that didn't involve getting tangled in alien courtship rituals. But her eyes were full of playful intelligence, and something in him responded to the directness, the lack of games. "One dinner," he said finally, "but no growling at me in public." Her smile flashed sharp teeth again. "I make no promises." Somewhere, between the chocolate leaving his hand and her walking away into the copper dusk, he realized an invisible thread had been tied between them, one he didn't fully understand, but one he already knew might be impossible to break. The rooftop restaurant was nothing like Ray had expected. From the street, the 4-story tenement looked ready to collapse under its own rust. But up here, under a spiderweb of mismatched string lights, the air carried the scent of spice and grilled meat instead of dust. The tables were cobbled together from scavenged metal sheets and old cargo crates, each with a view over the sprawling patchwork of Vergen's settlement. Beyond, the 3 moons were climbing the sky, draping the rust-colored landscape in an otherworldly silver-blue glow. You made it. Her voice carried over the low hum of conversation, unmistakable even. Before he turned to see her, Mira moved toward him with the same poised grace that had caught his attention the day before, though this time she was upright and smiling instead of crouched and growling. Gone was the pink jumpsuit. In its place, a dress that shifted between deep blue and violet as she moved, the iridescent fabric catching the moonlight in a way that seemed designed to draw the eye. Her hair was adorned with glittering clips like tiny constellations, and the sweep of her fox-like ears caught the faint breeze. Ray realized too late he'd been staring. You, clean up nice. Her gaze traveled over him in open assessment, lingering on the collar of his cleanest shirt and the well-worn edges of his jacket. So do you for a human who spends his days crawling through dirt. He couldn't help a snort. Is that a compliment or an insult? Her tail flicked playfully. Both. It's more interesting that way. They took a table near the edge. Of the rooftop, the settlement sprawled beneath them. Ray found himself studying her as much as the view. The curve of her tail around the chair leg, the subtle twitch of her ears when someone laughed at a neighboring table, the way she sat alert but comfortable, as if every angle of the space had already been assessed. A server approached another. Caridian, but with skin the color of burnished copper. Without needing to check a menu, Mira ordered for both of them, her tone warm but authoritative. When the server returned, it was with mismatched glasses, holding a faintly glowing purple liquid. Ray eyed it warily. What is this? Fermented nectar from the highlands, she said. Don't worry, it's compatible with human physiology. We checked. We? She sipped her drink, ears tilting slightly back in what he guessed was mild embarrassment. I planned this. I wanted to make sure nothing here would disagree with you. He took a cautious sip. It was sweet at first, like honey, then bloomed into a warm spice that lingered in his chest. Not bad. For a while, their conversation was easy. She asked about Earth, about the ocean Ray had grown up near, about why he'd traded it for the endless dust of Vergen. He found himself answering honestly, telling her about the jobs that had dried up, the decision to try his luck in the outer colonies, and how Vergen was supposed to be temporary. When he turned the question back on her, the playfulness dimmed. Her gaze slid toward the moons, and her tail went still. I'm hiding, she said at last, from someone, not something. Her voice dropped as she explained the political marriage arranged by her father, the warlord Krell, with his collection of wives, the cruelty whispered about in her home territories. She'd fled under the cover of night, thinking Vergen's insignificance would keep her safe. But she'd seen one of Krell's hunters yesterday, watching her in the market. That's why I marked you, she said, meeting his eyes. Not just because you're appealing, because I need protection. Humans have a reputation among my people. Unpredictable. Dangerous. Ray's instinct was to push back, to tell her she'd chosen the wrong man. But the way she said it, like it was fact, not flattery, stirred something in him. You were military once, she added, her tone certain. I've seen the way you move, how you scan a room. You don't lose habits like that. He didn't confirm it, but he didn't deny it either. Instead, he reached across the table and took her hand without thinking. Her skin was warmer than his, almost feverish. If they're here, We'll figure something out." The look she gave him then wasn't just gratitude. It was relief, threaded with something sharper, more dangerous. It was trust, offered without a bargain. When they left the rooftop, the moons hung higher, silver light pooling in the narrow streets. Somewhere between the glow of those lights and the quiet brush of her tail against his leg, Ray understood he was already past the point of keeping this simple, and by the time her lips touched his, the last threads of his plan to stay out of trouble were already gone. The mining administration building loomed over Vergen like a monolith of steel and corporate authority, its smooth walls a jarring contrast to the patchwork chaos of the settlement. Floodlights washed its surface in cold white, picking out the company emblem stamped above the main doors, a reminder that everything here, from the air filters to the food dispensers, belonged to interstellar mining. Ray and Mira approached, side by side, her tail brushing his leg now and then, in what he had learned was a subtle reassurance. She was wrapped in a plain jacket, hood drawn up to hide the fox-like ears, though nothing could disguise the faint shimmer of her skin when the light caught it. He kept his eyes moving, scanning the perimeter, noting the positions of guards and cameras, filing away exit routes without conscious thought. Old habits, dangerous ones to let resurface. Inside, the building's sterile corridors smelled faintly of ozone. Security scanners hummed as they passed, casting pale beams over them. Ray felt the weight of unseen eyes. "They're watching us," Mira murmured under her breath. He didn't need her newly discovered sensory gifts to know it. "Stay close." Commander Haskell's office sat at the top floor, the kind of place designed to make visitors feel small. The man himself stood with his back to them, hands clasped behind him, looking out over the sprawling mining yards. He didn't turn when they entered. "Caldwell," he said, voice graveled from years of command. "And Ms. Kira, daughter of High Counselor Torrin of the Northern Caridian Alliance." Mira stiffened. "How do you know who I am?" "That's my job, knowing things." He finally faced them, his weathered features unreadable. He gestured. "At 2 chairs. Sit." He remained standing. Ray's hand rested lightly on the butt of his pulse pistol. "What do you want, Haskell?" "To keep you both alive, for starters." With a tap of his desk panel, the panoramic windows dimmed to black, the room sealing itself with a quiet hiss. A holographic projection flickered into life above the desk. Star charts, cargo manifests, personnel files. "For the past 18 months, Haskell said, "I've been tracking an illegal weapons operation. Plasma cannons, neural disruptors, planet crackers, everything outlawed after the Centauri conflict. These are going to the highest bidders across 12 systems." One set of highlighted transactions burned brighter than the rest. The buyer, Warlord Krell. Mira's ears twitched sharply beneath her hood. "He's expanding his territory. With these weapons, he could challenge the Northern Alliance outright," Haskell said. "And that's only part of it." Another file opened: corporate board communications. Interstellar Mining wasn't just selling weapons. They were partnering with Krell to overthrow the Northern Alliance and seize Caridian resources. Her father's coalition, wiped out in one move. Mira's jaw tightened. "And my father?" "Marked for elimination along with the rest of his bloodline." "Which means you, too." The weight of it hit the room like a dropped ore crate. Ray's instincts screamed to get her out now. But Haskell wasn't done. "I have a ship off the books that can get you to a Galactic Council outpost in Proxima. But I need something first. The evidence to expose the board and Krell's plans." "What kind of evidence?" Ray asked. "Their most sensitive data is in a secure server room 3 levels below us." "I can get you close, but the final access." "Well, I think our Caridian friend here has the necessary touch." Mira glanced at Ray, a flicker of interest beneath the tension. You want us to break into corporate black storage? Ray said flatly. I want you to survive, Haskell countered. And if we do this, billions of others will survive too. It was reckless, dangerous, exactly the kind of job Ray had promised himself never to touch again. And yet, when he looked at Mira and saw both her fear and the steel underneath, he already knew his answer. When do we start? Haskell allowed himself the faintest of smiles. Right now. They moved through the service tunnels beneath. The building, the air thick with the smell of rust and stale coolant. Ray took point, every step silent, every glance ahead. Mira followed close, her senses sweeping outward, ears twitching at sounds beyond his range. 3 guards ahead, she whispered. 2 human. 1 Draxian. Ray grimaced. The Draxian will smell us before he sees us. Her tail gave a sly flick. Leave that to me. From a pocket, she pulled a small vial and sprayed its contents into a nearby ventilation duct. Within seconds, a wet, rumbling sneeze echoed from ahead, followed by another and another. The massive Draxian was doubled over, eyes watering as the human guards fussed over him. Pheromone extract, she said lightly. Not harmful. Very distracting. Ray shook his head, grinning despite himself. Remind me never to underestimate you. They slipped past and descended deeper, until a final maintenance corridor ended at a reinforced door with a biometric panel. Haskell's code got them halfway. The retinal scanner waited. Mira stepped forward, placing her palm flat on the panel, closing her eyes. It's like music, she murmured. I can hear where the patterns connect. The panel beeped. Green light. The door slid open. Ray raised an eyebrow. You've been holding out on me. Her eyes sparkled. We make a good team. They stepped into the humming glow of the server room. Somewhere far above them, Vergans. Night went on as usual. Down here, they were about to change the game entirely. The server room was cold, a kind of cold that seeped into bone, not from air chillers, but from the constant hum of machines working far beyond human tolerances. Towers of crystalline drives lined the walls, lit from within by a soft, bluish glow that pulsed in time with unseen data currents. Every sound was swallowed by the room's white noise, a constant hiss of cooling systems and quantum processors whispering to themselves. Ray moved quickly to the central terminal, its curved holosurface flickering with idle system prompts. Haskell said we're looking for anything tagged under Project Prometheus. He murmured, fingers already dancing across the input. Weapons manifests, deployment orders, schematics. Mira came to stand beside him, her tail brushing the floor. Show me how to navigate. He split the interface into mirrored panels. On one side, his hands tapped out command bypasses, tricking the system into thinking they were authorized corporate security. On the other, Mira tilted her head, eyes half closed, fingers hovering just above the projection. Ray watched, fascinated, as her expression shifted, ears twitching, tail curling. You're not even touching it, he noted. I don't have to, she said softly. The systems here, they have a rhythm. I can feel where the pathways lead. Within minutes, she had isolated a cluster of encrypted files buried behind multiple false directories. Ray fed her instructions on corporate encryption standards, and she slipped through them like water around stones. When the final layer fell away, the room lit up with the data they were looking for. Weapon shipments, design specs, deployment maps, all of it, tied neatly to Krell's territories. Ray's eyes narrowed as he dug deeper. These designs, they're wrong. Mira looked at the schematics over his shoulder. Wrong how? Containment fields are miscalibrated, not by accident. These aren't just designed to destroy military targets, they'll destabilize entire continental plates. Chain reaction, planetary collapse. She went still, her tail dropping. That's genocide. Not just genocide, Ray said grimly. Resource cleansing. Wipe out the population. Leave the minerals intact for automated extraction. The reality settled between them like a physical weight. Mira's eyes hardened, the usual playfulness replaced with something sharp and dangerous. Then we make. Sure, no one can ever use them. Ray slid a data crystal into the terminal's port. We'll copy everything. Not just for Haskell, our own backup. The transfer meter crept forward. 12%. 18%. 24%. Mira's ears flicked sharply. Footsteps. Multiple. Coming fast. How many? 5 heavy boots, armed. Ray's pulse pistol was already in his hand. We're not done yet. I need at least 70% before we can make sense of the whole network. She smiled suddenly, a predatory flash. I'll buy you time. Before he could argue, she stepped to the door, pausing only to grab his collar and pull him into a quick, fierce kiss. For luck, she murmured. Then she was gone, the door hissing shut behind her. Through the bond, Ray caught flickers of her movements, fast, precise, weaving through corridors. Her instincts meshed with fragments of his old training, and he realized she was using his tactics without even thinking about it. The awareness of her physical exertion, the adrenaline surge, the sharp spike of satisfaction when she slipped behind her first target. He felt it all like echoes of his own actions. The transfer hit 70%, then 90%, and finally, chimed complete. He yanked the crystal free and moved to the secondary exit Haskell had marked. Moments later, Mira appeared at the far end of the maintenance corridor, hair slightly mussed, tail swishing with smug satisfaction. What did you do? He asked as they jogged toward the lift. Set off the fire suppression system in the executive wing, she said with a grin. Ben reprogrammed the cleaning drones to chase security guards while spraying lubricant. He barked a laugh despite the tension. Remind me never to get on your bad side. Too late, she teased. You're already on my very good side. The lift doors closed around them, carrying them upward toward the roof. She leaned slightly against him, breathing controlled, but eyes still bright from the chase. Combat techniques, she said quietly. They work very well with Caridian reflexes. He glanced at her, catching the glint in her eye. We'll talk about that once we're safe. The doors slid open to the harsh light of Vergen's 3 setting suns. Haskell stood at the base of a sleek black Corvette-class ship, scanning the horizon through binoculars. Took you long enough, he growled. Get aboard. We've got company incoming. Ray looked over his shoulder and saw the dust plumes of 3 corporate security shuttles rising from the main landing bay. Engines flared, weapons systems hot. They know, Ray said grimly, holding up the data crystal. And they're not going to let us leave quietly. Haskell didn't waste words. Then we don't leave quietly. They sprinted up the ramp. Together, the Corvette's engines already rumbling to life. The Corvette's ramp clanged shut behind them, sealing out the swirl of dust and the high-pitched whine of the approaching shuttles. Inside, the air smelled faintly of machine oil and ozone, a scent Ray instantly associated with combat readiness. Haskell was already in the cockpit, fingers flying across the controls, the ship's systems coming alive with a low, eager hum. Caldwell, co-pilot seat, he barked without looking back. You still remember how to fly one of these? Twice in training. Once in a real fight, Ray replied, sliding into the seat and buckling in. Good. Make it count. Through the canopy, the first security shuttle banked toward them, its underbelly guns glinting in the dying sunlight. They've got missile lock. Mira's voice cut in from behind them. She wasn't even looking at the readouts. Her ears had tilted sharply toward the approaching vessels. I can hear the targeting system spooling up. Ray's hands tightened on the controls. The corvette roared off the pad, the G-force pressing them into their seats. The first volley of missiles streaked past as he threw the ship into a spiraling climb, the blasts lighting the clouds in violent bursts of orange. "They're not trying to disable us," Ray said grimly. "These are kill shots. Corporation doesn't like witnesses," Haskell muttered, locking the rear cannons onto the lead shuttle and returning fire. One burst found its mark. The shuttle went up in a brief sun-bright explosion. Two more craft surged to fill the gap, joined by a pair of sleeker, faster fighters. "We can't outrun those," Ray said. "Then don't." Mira's hands landed lightly, one on his shoulder, the other on the navigation console. "Let me in." The moment her touch settled, Ray felt the shift her mind brushing against his, that now familiar hum of connection. Suddenly, the tactical display wasn't just dots and vectors. He could sense the fighters' movements like phantom limbs, predicting their paths before they executed them. Hard port. Now. He obeyed without question, skimming past a missile so close the ship shuddered in its wake. "Dive 30 degrees. Roll, then climb," she said, her voice taking on a melodic cadence that matched the rhythm in his head. They moved as one. There. Shared instincts threading into each other until he couldn't tell where his reactions ended and hers began. Haskell's gunnery became surgical under the pattern of their maneuvers. Another fighter spiraled out, venting fire. It was 10 exhilarating minutes of impossible flight. The corvette dancing through Virgan's upper atmosphere like it was alive, until the last of the pursuing ships peeled away. Low on fuel. Ray eased them into the steady, pulsing glow of the jump corridor, every muscle trembling with the aftermath. Mira swayed slightly as she unbuckled, and he caught her before she could stumble. "You all right?" he asked quietly. She nodded, but her eyes still held that deep, otherworldly blue. "That was more intense than I expected." Our minds were completely synchronized. "You two need rest," Haskell said from the cockpit, setting the ship on autopilot. 6 hours until the Proxima jump point. "I'll take first watch." Ray guided Mira to the small crew quarters, little more than 2 bunks, a cramped washroom, and a pair of storage lockers. The door hissed shut behind them, muting the hum of the engines. Mira looked at him, then really looked, her expression a mix of exhaustion and something more primal. "The bond," she whispered, stepping closer. "After what we just did." Ray didn't need her to finish. The mental intimacy had created a craving, a magnetic pull that was as physical as it was emotional. "Are you sure?" he asked, brushing an electric blue strand of hair from her face. Her answer was to press herself against him, her tail curling possessively around his leg. The kiss that followed carried the same charge as their shared flight, 2 minds and bodies in perfect, breathless sync. Later, when the vibration of the ship's exit from hyperspace stirred him awake, she was curled against his chest, still holding him as if some part of her feared letting go. From the cockpit, Haskell's voice crackled over the intercom. "If you're done canoodling, we've got a situation that requires attention." Ray met Mira's eyes. Whatever awaited them in Proxima, they'd face it together. And after the way they'd just flown, he knew there was nothing in any star system that could match them when they were one. The corvette dropped out of hyperspace into the crowded lanes of the Proxima neutral zone. From the cockpit, the view was a sprawling chaos of commerce freighters and shuttles, weaving around each other in slow, deliberate ballet, their running lights blinking in every conceivable pattern. Looming ahead was the Proxima hub itself, a massive station, built over centuries, each new section grafted onto the last without any real symmetry. Domes, spires, and skeletal docking arms jutted in every direction, connected by enclosed conduits like arteries feeding a living, breathing organism. Haskell stood with his hands on the back of the pilot's chair, his gaze fixed on the display. "Ambassador Trellis is here," attending a diplomatic conference. We get the evidence into her hands, and she can trigger emergency council protocols. That's our shield. Nothing else will keep the corporation or Krell from coming after us. Ray studied the tactical readout. And the catch? Long-range scans picked up 3 Caridian warships entering the sector 6 hours ago. Southern Territories markings. Mira's ears flattened. Krell. How did he find us? Ray asked. Corporation probably called him the second we jumped clear of Vergen, Haskell said. He's here to eliminate witnesses and get his prize back. Ray's jaw tightened. Which means you. Which means us, Mira corrected, her tail brushing his leg. They began the approach. Haskell kept his voice level, but Ray caught the edge under it. Even Krell won't fire in the neutral zone, but if he's got agents aboard, it's a different story. I'll take the data to Trellis. You two stay off the main decks. Mira tilted her head, eyes narrowing slightly. I can sense Caridian energy signatures now. Not faces, not thoughts, just presence. Ray turned to her. You think you can spot them before they get to us? Maybe, she said. Not like a scanner, more like catching a scent in the wind. It's better than nothing, Haskell said. But stay sharp. Krell's hunters are patient and thorough. The corvette settled into a docking berth. With a muted thud, the moment the airlock cycled open, the scent and sound of the hub rolled in warm metal, spices from 6 worlds, the layered murmur of 1,000 voices. The promenade was a tapestry of species, colors, and shapes. Banners fluttering from railings in some half-forgotten ceremonial display. Ray would have liked it once, but not today. They moved together, Haskell breaking off toward the diplomatic sector, while Ray and Mira took a parallel route along the market concourse. Through their bond, he felt her scanning tiny flickers of awareness, like the sensation of a hand brushing against his in a crowd. There, she murmured without moving her lips. 2 hunters at the market junction. Don't look left, corridor will take us around. They adjusted course, there, steps casual. Every now and then, her tail would sweep lightly against his leg, a silent pulse of reassurance. The air between them was taut with unspoken knowledge. They were deep in enemy waters. For 40 minutes it worked. Mira's readings kept them a step ahead, slipping past checkpoints and patrols. But as they entered a wide atrium, something slammed into their shared awareness, an emotional spike so sharp it staggered. Ray, horror, grief, rage. Mira's mental voice was raw. The view screens. Ray turned to the massive hollow display overhead. News footage filled the atrium planetary surface, rolling fields that a flash so bright it washed the camera feed to white. When the image cleared, a crater sprawled where an agricultural hub had been. The ticker read, Kaya Minor, Northern Alliance Agricultural Moon, destroyed by planet cracker detonation. They've started, she whispered. Her hood fell back, electric blue hair catching the light. The hunters saw her at the same moment. Ray did, 3 of them, moving fast through the crowd, weapons drawn despite the hub's laws. Mira, behind you. She spun, narrowly avoiding a blast. Pain lanced through their bond, her shoulder grazed. Ray's pistol was in his hand before he thought, his shot precise and final, dropping the lead hunter. The others broke away into the service tunnels, choosing retreat over a stand in the open. Station drones swarmed in, sirens wailing. Civilians scattered in panic. Ray pulled Mira close, his voice low but urgent. Can you move? It's nothing, she said, though her skin had paled around the burn. We need to find Haskell. A station-wide alert flashed across the displays. Central Command, Emergency Council Session in progress. That's where they'll be, Ray said. They navigated through the chaos, avoiding patrols by instinct and Mira's uncanny sensing. Twice, they slipped past choke points, just as guards swept through. The central command chamber's entrance was blocked by armed council guards. No unauthorized personnel. One said flatly. Ray was about to try bluff or force when a familiar voice called from behind the guards. Let them through. Ambassadors. Orders. Haskell stood there, looking more official than Ray had ever seen him. And behind him, the hum of the chamber swelled. As they stepped inside, Ray caught sight of Trellis at the center, addressing the assembly. The moment was about to shift from a survival game to something far bigger. And deep in his gut, Ray knew. Once they crossed this threshold, there'd be no going back to running or hiding. They were stepping into the heart of the fight. The central command chamber was a swirl of urgency and clashing voices. Dozens of council representatives filled the tiered seats, their holographic nameplates flickering with the colors of their home systems. At the center stood Ambassador Trellis, her posture a steel rod in the storm, silver-streaked hair catching the overhead light. A massive projection of Kia Minor's smoking crater rotated slowly above her, casting shifting shadows. Across the chamber walls, the evidence is irrefutable, Trellis was saying as Ray and Mira followed Haskell toward the inner circle. Interstellar Mining, in collusion with Warlord Krell, has deployed modified planet cracker weapons against civilian targets. These designs are not conventional. They are engineered to trigger geological collapse across entire continents. Mira stepped forward, her hood pushed back, the coppery burn on her shoulder stark against her azure skin. Ambassador, Kia Minor is only the first. There are more platforms already in place across the Northern Alliance. I've seen the deployment maps. If they activate the rest, my people will be gone in days. The murmuring in the chamber deepened, a ripple of unease moving through the representatives. Trellis's eyes were sharp as she studied Mira, Counselor Torrin's daughter, and the human bonded to her. Ray felt dozens of gazes on him, weighing and measuring. We can help. Your fleet find and disarm those weapons before they fire, he said. Between my military training and her knowledge of Caridian tech, we can coordinate across species in ways no one else can. Haskell stepped in, placing the small case on Trellis's podium. Here's your proof. Deployment orders, specs, boardroom communications, everything. Within minutes, the chamber's atmosphere shifted from debate to focused action. Trellis relayed orders to the council fleet, her staff linking Ray and Mira directly to the flagship's command center. Through their bond, they settled into that same seamless rhythm they'd found in the cockpit over Virgin Mira's sensing. The faint, unique energy signatures of the planet cracker arrays, Ray translating her impressions into precise coordinates and tactical recommendations. For 3 exhausting hours, the combined fleet hunted the platforms down. 17 were neutralized. Before activation, one already Lav was disabled with seconds to spare. When the last platform's icon winked off the tactical display, the chamber erupted in applause and relief. Trellis dismissed the fleet to mop up Krell's forces and turned back to them. You've saved billions of lives. The Council owes you both a debt, and, she handed Mira a slim-cum device. Your father is safe. He's waiting to speak with you. Mira's ears flicked, emotion rippling through their link relief, joy, and something warmer when she looked at Ray. He wants to meet you. Properly. Ray arched a brow. Is that a good thing? Her tail curled around his wrist in answer. Very good. He's curious about the human who formed a life bond with his daughter. Haskell gave a low grunt. Life bond? Mira's cheeks darkened with a Caridian blush. It's what we call a permanent telepathic connection. Among my people, it's essentially marriage. Ray blinked, caught between surprise and a laugh. So when you growled at me that first day, I was claiming you as my potential mate, she admitted, her voice low but steady. I didn't expect it to actually work. Something loosened. In Ray's chest, and he shook his head with a smile. From chocolate bar to life bond in under a week. That's got to be a record. Does it bother you? She asked quietly. He stepped closer, cupping her face. I think I've been heading toward you my whole life without knowing it. Next time, though, maybe use words instead of growling. Less confusing for us, simple humans. Her smile was slow, wicked and entirely hers. Where's the fun in that? As their lips met, the chamber noise faded, their bond humming with the shared weight of what they'd done, and the unshakable knowledge that whatever came next, they'd face it together